When my husband Tom and I moved into our new house, I felt like we were starting a new life together. We had a quiet street, friendly neighbors, and lots of space. It was perfect, and I was happy to see Tom happy too. I thought this was going to be the beginning of something wonderful for us. Not long after we settled in, I met our next-door neighbor, Lily. She was friendly and warm, always smiling and making small talk. She came over the first day, bringing us fresh cookies. "Welcome to the neighborhood," she said, handing me the plate. I thanked her and invited her in for coffee, which she gladly accepted. As we sat in the kitchen, I noticed that she kept asking about Tom. "Does Tom work nearby?" she asked. "What kind of work does he do?" It was friendly enough, so I didn't think much of it. I thought she was just being kind and curious, like any good neighbor. When Tom came home that evening, I told him about Lily. He laughed and said, "Well, it sounds like we have a nice neighbor." I agreed, feeling lucky that we had friendly people around us. Over the next few days, I saw Lily more and more. She seemed to always be around, waving at me from her yard or saying hello when I took out the trash. But she also started bumping into Tom a lot. She would appear just as he left the house for his morning jog or when he came back from work. At first, I didn't think it was anything strange. People in small neighborhoods often run into each other, right? One evening, I was watering the plants outside when I saw Lily approach Tom. She was holding a box of muffins, saying she had made too many and thought he might like some. They chatted for a few minutes, laughing about something I couldn't hear. I watched them, and for a moment, I felt a strange feeling in my stomach. Was she trying to get closer to him? I shook off the thought. It was silly to think that. She was just being a nice neighbor, I told myself. But the feeling didn't go away. Each time I saw Lily talking to Tom, I felt a bit more uncomfortable. She seemed to find excuses to talk to him, small reasons to stop by or things to borrow. One evening, she even knocked on our door to ask if Tom could help her fix a broken lamp. "I'm so sorry to bother you, Tom," she said sweetly. "But I don't know who else to ask." I offered to help, but she politely declined and said, "I think Tom will know what to do." Tom went over to help her, and I sat alone in the kitchen, waiting. I tried to tell myself it was nothing. Tom was my husband, he loved me. I had no reason to worry. Still, I couldn't shake this feeling of unease that kept growing. When he came back, I decided to bring it up. "Do you think Lily is a bit, I don't know, interested in you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light. Tom laughed and waved his hand. "Alice, come on. She's just being nice. You're being silly." His words stung a little, but I laughed with him, trying to hide my feelings. Maybe I was being silly. Maybe I was just overthinking things. But things didn't get better. Lily continued to run into Tom at every chance she got. One morning, I saw her waiting outside just as Tom left for his jog. She quickly joined him, chatting and laughing as they walked down the street. I watched them from the window, my heart sinking. It felt like she was crossing a line, but I didn't know how to stop it. That night, I brought it up again. "Tom, don't you think it's strange that Lily is always around you? She seems interested." I said it quietly, hoping he would understand this time. But again he brushed it off, smiling. "Alice, she's just being friendly. There's no need to worry." His words felt like a wall between us, like he didn't see what I saw. I tried to shake off my doubts, but I couldn't. Every time I saw Lily with Tom, that feeling grew stronger, twisting inside me. I started to wonder if I was the problem. Maybe I was just jealous. Maybe I was imagining it all. But something in me couldn't let it go. One evening, I saw something that made my heart race. I was getting ready for bed when I glanced out the window and saw Lily standing by her own window, looking in our direction. It was dark and I could only see her outline, but I knew it was her. She stood there, staring toward our house for what felt like a long time. I felt a shiver run down my spine. Why was she watching us? Was it just a coincidence? Or was there something else going on? I didn't know what to think anymore. The next day, I told Tom about it, but he just laughed and said I was making things up. "Alice, you're overthinking this," he said, patting my shoulder. But I knew what I had seen. I wasn't imagining things. I decided that I needed to understand more about Lily. If she was going to be this close to us, I had to know who she really was. As the days went by, I found myself watching Lily more and more. She seemed to be everywhere, always ready with a smile and a wave. But something about her felt wrong. Each time she saw Tom, she seemed so pleased, like she had been waiting to see him. I didn't know if it was all in my head, but the feeling in my stomach kept getting worse. I decided to pay more attention to her, to see if she was truly being friendly or if there was something more to it. I noticed how she seemed to know exactly when Tom would be around. If he went out to the garden, she would appear outside a few minutes later, pretending to water her plants. When he came home from work, she was somehow always there, either in her yard or by her window, ready to catch his eye. It was strange, and it made me feel uneasy. One day, I met Sarah, another neighbor down the street. She was older, probably in her 50s, and seemed friendly and open. We talked for a bit about the neighborhood, and I decided to bring up Lily. "Do you know Lily well?" I asked, trying to sound casual. Sarah looked at me with a small smile and said, "Oh, Lily. Yes, she's around a lot." Sarah then paused and looked at me closely. "Has she been spending time with your husband?" she asked quietly, as if she already knew the answer. I nodded, surprised that she guessed it. Sarah sighed and said, "Lily is like that. She has this way with men. She likes to be friendly, maybe a little too friendly. It causes trouble sometimes." Her words hit me hard. I wasn't imagining things. Lily's behavior wasn't just in my head. It was real, and others had noticed it too. I thanked Sarah and went home, feeling a strange mix of anger and relief. I wasn't alone in feeling this way, but I didn't know what to do about it. That evening, when Tom came home, I decided to bring it up again. I told him what Sarah had said, how Lily had this way of getting close to men. "Tom, she's not just being friendly," I said. "Sarah even warned me about her." But Tom just shook his head and laughed a little. "Alice, you're worrying too much. Just because she's friendly doesn't mean she has bad intentions," he said, brushing it off again. His words hurt me. I felt alone in my worry, like I was the only one who could see what was happening. I wanted Tom to believe me, to see things from my side, but he didn't. I started to wonder if maybe he enjoyed her attention, even if he wouldn't admit it. The thought made me feel even more hurt. A few days later, I noticed something strange. I was sitting in our living room, looking through some old newspapers that had been left by the previous owners. I don't know why I felt like looking at them, but as I flipped through the pages, something caught my eye. There was an article about a car accident from a few years ago, and one of the names in the article sounded familiar. Lily's last name. My heart started to beat faster. I read the article carefully. It was about a man who had died in a car accident. The article mentioned his wife, who was left behind and heartbroken. The wife's name was Lily. My hands felt cold as I put the newspaper down. Could it be the same Lily? Could she be that woman who had lost her husband? I didn't know what to think. Why was she here in this neighborhood so close to us? Why was she so interested in Tom? My mind started racing with questions, and I felt a strange fear growing inside me. If Lily was the same person from the article, then maybe her intentions weren't friendly at all. Maybe she had moved here because of Tom. That evening, I decided to ask Tom about it. I needed to know if he had ever heard of Lily before. I brought up the article, asking him if he remembered the accident. For a moment, his face changed, and he looked surprised, almost uncomfortable. "Yes, I remember it," he said quietly. "I was involved in that accident. I was the driver." I stared at him, feeling both shocked and afraid. He continued, explaining that it had been a terrible accident, something that had haunted him for years. "I never meant for it to happen. Alice," he said, his voice filled with regret. "I tried to help, but her husband didn't make it." I could see the pain in his eyes, and I knew he had carried this guilt for a long time. Suddenly, everything made sense. Lily wasn't just our neighbor. She was here for a reason. She had lost her husband in that accident, and Tom was the driver. She must have known who he was when we moved in. She must have planned to be near him, to get close to him. But why? Was it to hurt him, to make him feel guilty? Or was there something else? I felt a chill run through me. The kind woman I thought I knew now felt like a stranger. Someone who had a secret purpose for being close to us. I didn't know what to do or who to trust. I wanted to talk to Tom about it, to tell him everything, but I didn't know if he would believe me. As I lay in bed that night, my mind raced with thoughts and fears. I felt like I was in the middle of a storm, unable to see what was coming next. I didn't know if I was safe, if Tom was safe, or what Lily truly wanted from us. The next morning, I knew I had to find out the truth. I couldn't live in fear, waiting for something to happen. I decided to confront Lily, to ask her what she wanted, even if it meant facing the truth alone. The next day, I woke up feeling nervous but determined. I had to talk to Lily. I had to understand why she was here and what she wanted from us. The fear inside me had grown too strong to ignore, and I couldn't keep living in this constant worry. If she was truly here because of the accident, then I needed to hear it from her. After breakfast, I watched her house from our kitchen window, waiting for a moment when I could go over and talk to her. Finally, I saw her come outside, carrying a bag of trash to the bins. This was my chance. I took a deep breath, put on my shoes, and walked over to her yard. "Lily," I called, trying to keep my voice calm. She turned around, surprised to see me. Her smile was friendly as always, but now I saw something different in her eyes, something I hadn't noticed before. Was it sadness? Or maybe something darker? Couldn't be sure. "Hi, Alice," she said, giving me her usual bright smile. "What brings you over?" I hesitated, not knowing how to begin, but I knew I couldn't hide my thoughts any longer. "Lily, I need to ask you something. It's about the accident. The one from a few years ago." As soon as I mentioned the accident, her smile faded. Her face turned serious, and she looked at me with sharp, intense eyes. "What do you want to know, Alice?" she asked, her voice suddenly quiet and cold. She knew exactly what I was talking about. I took another deep breath, feeling my heart beat faster. "Are you here because of Tom?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Did you know he was the driver?" The words hung in the air between us, and for a moment, I thought she might deny it. But she didn't. Instead, she looked away, staring at the ground as if remembering something painful. "Yes," she finally said, her voice calm but full of emotion. "I knew it was him. I knew it the day you moved in. I have known since the first day I saw him." Her words sent a chill down my spine. She hadn't come here by accident. She had come here on purpose, and she had been watching us ever since. "But why?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Why are you here, Lily? What do you want?" She looked up at me, her eyes filled with something I couldn't quite understand. Was it anger? Grief? I wasn't sure. "You have no idea what it's like to lose someone like that," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "One day, he was there with me, laughing, holding my hand. And then he was gone, just like that. And your husband was the one who took him away." Her voice was full of pain, and for a moment, I felt sorry for her. I couldn't imagine the grief she must have felt, the emptiness that must have stayed with her after losing her husband. "I'm sorry, Lily," I said quietly. "I'm so sorry for what happened. But Tom didn't mean for it to happen. It was an accident. He feels terrible about it. He thinks about it all the time." She looked at me with a sad smile, as if she had heard those words many times before but couldn't believe them. "I know he didn't mean it," she said, her voice softer now. "But that doesn't change what happened. It doesn't bring my husband back." She took a deep breath and looked away again. "I thought maybe if I came here, if I got close to him, I could find some kind of closure. I don't know. Maybe I thought I could make him feel the same loneliness I feel." Her words hurt me, and I didn't know what to say. I could see now that she was not just trying to steal Tom away from me. She was dealing with a pain that I couldn't understand, a pain that had turned into anger and confusion. But still, I felt uneasy. She was here with a purpose, and I didn't know if I could trust her. "So, you wanted to hurt him?" I asked, my voice small. She shook her head quickly. "No, not to hurt him, not exactly. But I wanted him to know what it feels like to lose something, to lose someone. I wanted him to understand my pain." Her voice was full of sorrow, and I realized that she was as lost as I was in this strange situation. We stood there in silence for a long moment, both of us unsure of what to say next. I could see the sadness in her eyes, and I knew that she was suffering, even now, but I couldn't let her continue this. I couldn't let her come into our lives with her pain and anger, trying to make Tom feel her loss. "Lily," I said slowly, "I don't think this is the way. I know you're hurt. I can see that. But Tom and I, we have our own life now. We didn't know about you. We didn't know that you would come here with this in your heart." She looked at me, her face softening. "Maybe you're right," she whispered. "Maybe I was wrong to come here, but I didn't know what else to do. I thought, maybe if I saw him, if I was near him, I could find peace." I felt a strange sense of pity for her. She was lost, just like I was, trying to find some kind of answer, some kind of relief from her pain. But I knew this couldn't go on. She had to move on, to let go of this hurt. "Maybe it's time to let go, Lily," I said gently. "Maybe it's time to find peace in another way. Tom and I, we want to move forward. And maybe you need to do the same." She looked down, her shoulders slumping as if a weight had been lifted but had left her feeling empty. "Maybe you're right," she said softly. "Maybe it's time." I watched her as she walked back into her house, and for the first time, I felt a strange sense of calm. I didn't know what would happen next, but I knew that something had changed. Maybe this was the beginning of an end for her, and maybe, just maybe, we could all find peace. After my conversation with Lily, I went home feeling both relieved and worried. I was glad I finally understood why she was here and what she wanted. But her pain stayed with me. I couldn't shake the sadness in her eyes, the loneliness she carried with her everywhere she went. I felt guilty for feeling so suspicious before, but I also knew I had to protect my marriage, protect Tom. When Tom came home that evening, I knew I had to tell him everything. I needed him to understand what was going on with Lily and why she was always around him. As we sat down for dinner, I took a deep breath and decided to tell him the truth. "Tom, I talked to Lily today," I began, feeling nervous but determined. He looked at me, surprised, but he put his fork down and listened. "What did she say?" he asked, his face serious. I could see he was curious but also a little worried. "She knows about the accident," I said quietly. "She knows you were the driver. She's here because of what happened to her husband." I watched his face as he absorbed my words. His expression changed from surprise to sadness, then guilt. He nodded slowly, like he was beginning to understand. "Oh," he said softly. "I didn't know. I didn't think she would come here because of that." He looked down, his face full of regret. I could see that this was not easy for him. The accident was a part of his past that he didn't like to talk about. I knew it was something that had haunted him for years. "She's in a lot of pain, Tom," I continued, trying to be gentle. "She said she came here to be close to you, to understand her pain. Maybe to make you feel some of her sadness, too. She felt lost, like she didn't know where else to go." He nodded, still looking down. "I understand," he said, his voice quiet. "I wish there was something I could do to change what happened. I never wanted anyone to suffer because of me. It was an accident. But it doesn't change the fact that she lost someone she loved." His eyes looked so sad, and my heart ached for him. I knew he carried this guilt, and now, with Lily so close, it was even harder. "I think maybe she needs closure, Tom," I said. "Maybe she needs to hear it from you that you're sorry, that you never meant for it to happen. Maybe then she can finally move on." I wasn't sure if this would work, but it felt like the right thing to say. I hoped it would help him find peace, too. He looked at me, nodding slowly. "You're right," he said, his voice steady now. "I need to talk to her. I need to tell her that I'm sorry. It's the least I can do." He took a deep breath, and I could see he was gathering his courage. The next day, Tom and I went over to Lily's house together. As we stood at her front door, I felt nervous again, but Tom held my hand, giving me strength. After a moment, Lily opened the door, surprised to see both of us there. She looked from me to Tom, and I could see the emotions flash across her face. Surprise, sadness, maybe even relief. Lily, can we talk? Tom asked gently. She nodded, stepping aside to let us in. We sat in her small living room, the silence heavy around us. I could feel the tension, the sadness hanging in the air. After a moment, Tom spoke. Lily, I just want to say, I'm so sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen. That night, it was an accident, but I know that doesn't take away your pain. I've thought about it every day since then. I wish I could go back, that I could change what happened, but I can't. I am truly sorry. His words hung in the air, filling the room with a deep sadness. Lily looked at him, her eyes shining with tears. For a long time, she didn't say anything, just looked at him with a mix of emotions. Anger, sadness, and maybe even a small bit of understanding. Finally, she spoke, her voice soft but steady. Thank you, Tom, she said quietly. Thank you for saying that. I didn't know what I was looking for when I came here. I thought maybe if I saw you, if I got close to you, I could feel better, find some peace. But now I see that holding on to this pain, it's only hurting me. She paused, wiping a tear from her cheek. My husband is gone, and nothing will bring him back. I think maybe it's time I let go of this anger. It's time I move on. Her voice was shaky but firm, and I could see a weight lifting from her, like she was finally ready to let go. Tom nodded, his face filled with relief. Thank you, Lily, he said. Thank you for understanding. They sat in silence for a moment, both of them letting the past go, both of them finally finding some peace. After a while, Lily looked at me, her face softer now. Alice, I'm sorry for everything, she said, her voice sincere. I know I caused you pain too. I was so lost in my grief. I didn't think about what I was doing to you. I hope you can forgive me. I felt a wave of relief wash over me. I understand, Lily, I said, smiling gently. I know you were hurting. I hope you find happiness again. In that moment, I felt a strange sense of peace, like we had all let go of something heavy. After that day, things changed. Lily began to keep to herself more, and I saw her less often. It seemed like she was slowly letting go, moving on from the pain that had kept her close to us. Tom and I felt closer than ever, having faced this together and come out stronger. One morning, I saw Lily's car packed with boxes. She was moving away. She waved at me from her yard, a small smile on her face. I waved back, feeling a sense of closure. She was moving on, finding her own path, and I hoped she would find peace and happiness wherever she went. As I watched her drive away, I felt a deep sense of relief. The shadow that had hung over our lives was finally gone, and I knew that Tom and I could now move forward together, free from the past. After Lily drove away, I felt like a weight had lifted from my shoulders. The past few weeks had been filled with so much tension and worry. Now, with Lily gone, I hoped things would go back to normal. Tom and I could finally focus on each other again, without the shadows of the past haunting us. In the days that followed, Tom and I spent more time together. We went for long walks around the neighborhood, made simple dinners together, and talked more than we had in months. It was like we were rediscovering each other. I could feel our bond growing stronger, and it made me so happy. Felt like we were healing, like we were building a new beginning. One evening, as we sat on the couch, I noticed Tom seemed deep in thought. I touched his hand gently. What's on your mind, Tom? I asked, hoping he would share his thoughts with me. He looked at me, hesitating for a moment, then sighed. I was just thinking about Lily, he said softly. About the accident, about everything. I didn't realize how much guilt I was still carrying. Meeting her again, seeing her pain, it brought it all back. I nodded, understanding his feelings. It wasn't your fault, Tom. It was an accident. You didn't mean for any of it to happen, I said, trying to reassure him. But I could see in his eyes that the guilt was still there, like a scar that hadn't fully healed. I know, but part of me always felt responsible, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. I never got to say I was sorry to her husband, to the family he left behind. Maybe that's why I felt so drawn to Lily when she was around. Maybe I thought I could make things right. I squeezed his hand, feeling his pain. I realized that while I had worried about Lily and her intentions, Tom had been dealing with his own struggles. He had been carrying this guilt alone, unable to fully let go. "You did what you could, Tom," I said softly. "You talked to Lily, you apologized. I think that's enough. You've done everything you could." He nodded, his eyes softening as he looked at me. "Thank you, Alice. Thank you for standing by me through all of this. I know it hasn't been easy, but I don't know what I would have done without you." His words touched my heart, and I felt tears welling up in my eyes. I leaned over and hugged him tightly, feeling grateful for our love, for our strength together. As the days passed, I could see Tom beginning to relax. He laughed more, smiled more, and the sadness that had been in his eyes started to fade. It was like he was finally letting go of the guilt he had carried for so long. I was happy to see him healing, to see him moving forward. One evening, as we were preparing dinner, I heard a knock at the door. I opened it to find Sarah, our neighbor from down the street. She had been so kind when I had talked to her about Lily, and I was happy to see her. "Hi, Alice," she greeted me with a smile. "I just wanted to check on you and Tom. I know it's been a tough time, and I thought maybe you could use a friend." I invited her in, and she joined us for dinner. We talked about everything, the neighborhood, our plans, even some funny stories about the other neighbors. Sarah was warm and supportive, and I felt grateful for her friendship. It was nice to feel like we weren't alone, that we had people around us who cared. As we finished dinner, Sarah looked at me with a gentle smile. "I think you two are going to be just fine," she said, her eyes full of kindness. "You've been through a lot, but you've come out stronger." Her words stayed with me long after she left. It felt like a reminder that Tom and I had faced something difficult and had come through it together. We were stronger now, and I knew that, whatever happened in the future, we would be okay. One night, as Tom and I lay in bed, he reached for my hand. "Alice, I want us to move forward," he said softly. "I want to focus on us, on our life together. No more looking back, no more guilt. Just us and our future." I nodded, feeling his words settle in my heart. "Yes, Tom, let's move forward. Together." I leaned over and kissed him, feeling a deep sense of peace. From that moment, our life began to change. We stopped talking about the accident, about Lily, and focused on the future instead. We made new plans, small goals, little dreams we wanted to chase together. Our home felt lighter, filled with hope instead of worry. It was a new beginning, and I was excited to see where it would take us. Sometimes, in quiet moments, I still thought about Lily. I wondered if she was okay, if she had found peace. I hoped she had. She deserved to be happy, to find her own way forward. But I knew that our paths were separate now, and it was time to let go. As the months passed, Tom and I continued to grow closer. We faced challenges, of course, but they felt different now. We had been through something difficult, something that had tested our love, and we had come out stronger. I knew that, no matter what happened, we could face it together. Looking back, I realized that this experience had changed me, too. I had learned to trust my instincts, to be strong for the people I loved, and to find forgiveness in my heart. I had learned that life wasn't always easy, but that love could carry us through even the darkest moments. In the end, I was grateful for the lessons we had learned, for the strength we had found. Tom and I were ready for whatever life would bring, and I knew that, as long as we had each other, we would be okay. A few months after Lily left, life felt settled again. Tom and I had truly moved forward, and the dark shadow that once seemed to hang over us was gone. Our home was filled with peace, with little moments of laughter and love, and a sense of relief that we could finally leave the past behind us. I felt thankful every day for the fresh start we had. One Saturday morning, Tom and I decided to spend the day cleaning up the garden. Spring was coming, and I wanted to plant flowers, maybe some roses or lavender to bring more color to the yard. As we worked side by side, pulling weeds and raking leaves, I felt a deep happiness. It was simple, but it was exactly what I needed. A life free from worry, filled with love. While I was busy trimming a small bush, Tom came over and touched my shoulder. "Alice, thank you," he said quietly. "Thank you for everything. I don't think I could have gotten through any of this without you. His words surprised me, but they warmed my heart. You don't have to thank me, Tom, I said, smiling at him. We went through it together. That's what matters. I hugged him, feeling so grateful for our bond and our strength. As we continued working, I thought about how far we had come. I had learned so much, not just about Tom or Lily, but about myself. I had learned to trust myself, to listen to my own instincts. I had learned to be patient and to give people room to find their own path to healing. In a way, I felt proud of myself. I had faced my fears and come out stronger. After a few hours, we took a break and sat on the porch, drinking cold lemonade. The sun was shining, and a soft breeze blew through the trees. Everything felt peaceful, and I let myself enjoy the quiet. Tom leaned back, closing his eyes, looking so relaxed. It was moments like these that made me realize how lucky we were, how grateful I was for the life we had rebuilt. As I sat there, I thought about Lily one last time. I wondered where she was now, if she had found her own happiness. I hoped she had. She had been through so much, and despite everything, I wished her peace. It felt good to let go of any bitterness, to feel only hope for her. I was ready to close that chapter fully. Just as I was about to go back inside, I noticed our neighbor Sarah waving from her yard. She walked over with a big smile on her face, carrying a basket of cookies. I baked too many cookies and thought you two might like some, she said cheerfully. Her presence was warm and friendly, and I was glad to see her. We invited her to sit with us, and soon we were chatting and laughing like old friends. She had been a kind support during those hard days, and I appreciated her even more now. She talked about her family, about her grandkids, and even shared funny stories about her years in the neighborhood. Felt good to connect with her, to feel part of a community. As she was leaving, Sarah looked at us with a soft smile. You two are a strong couple, she said. I can see how much you love each other. Hold on to that and don't let anything get in the way. Her words were simple, but they meant so much. I felt like she truly understood what we had been through, and her support was like a blessing. After Sarah left, Tom and I went back inside, feeling a little tired but happy. We decided to spend the rest of the day relaxing, watching a movie together on the couch. As we sat there, his arm around me, I felt completely at peace. There was no more fear, no more worry, only the life we had built together, filled with hope and love. That night, as I lay in bed, I thought about the journey we had taken. It had been difficult, but I realized now that it had brought us closer. We were stronger because we had faced something hard together, something that tested our trust and love. I felt grateful for every part of it, even the painful parts, because it showed me just how deep our love was. Looking back, I saw how each moment had taught me something important. I had learned that love could survive even the darkest times. I had learned that forgiveness could heal even the deepest wounds. And I had learned that sometimes, letting go of the past was the best way to make space for a brighter future. The next morning, I woke up with a sense of excitement, ready to take on whatever life had in store for us. Tom and I had big dreams, small dreams, and everything in between. I knew that, together, we could handle anything. As we prepared breakfast, Tom suddenly grinned and said, "Let's plant that garden we talked about. Flowers, herbs, maybe even some tomatoes." His excitement made me laugh, and I felt a warm joy fill my heart. "Yes," I agreed, smiling back. "Let's make this place even more beautiful." We had gone through a dark chapter, but we had come out on the other side, stronger and ready for new beginnings. Together, we were ready to fill our life with happiness and beauty. And so, with every flower we planted, every laugh we shared, and every moment we spent together, I knew that we had truly let go of the past. We were looking toward a future that was filled with hope, love, and the endless possibilities of a life lived side by side.